Hey guys, welcome back, it's Meg. Today this is the 10.1 guide for Raid for Mistweaver. We are going to be going over talents, picking your build, stats, rotation, cooldowns, and recommended Weakauras and add-ons. We have multiple builds that we can run, and with all of them we are essentially doing the same thing, which is spreading and maintaining Renewing Mist, executing our Celestial window, and then we move on to the Vivify cleaving portion. This class tree is for both of the Yulon builds that we have available. The tree doesn't vary a whole lot. The two things that are reflected with playstyle changes are Jade Serpent Statue and Escape from Reality. Jade Serpent Statue acts as free healing essentially, as we're already going to be using Soothing Mist, and Escape from Reality is utilized during our Vivify windows for mana reduction. Everything else is pretty standard, and you're going to see a lot of similarities between all different forms of content for the class tree. This is the spec tree for the first build. This is a Clouded Focus build with 1 minute Yulon with mana talents. This build focuses on extremely high HPS windows through Yulon and Clouded Focus, leading into a Vivify cleave portion by using Rapid Diffusion and extensions through Rising Mist. This is generally what we are going to be considering the standard build for this tier. This is the second Yulon build, and it is very similar to the first one, except we are taking no mana talents and we take Calm Coalescence and Chrysalis instead. This plays the same way, however you are going to need external mana to be able to do this without any of our mana talents. The class tree for the Chi-Ji build is basically what we've seen for most of last tier. The difference between this class tree and the Yulon build is that we do not take Jade Serpent Statue and we will have that one extra roll charge instead. Other than that, this is fairly standard. Like I said, you're going to see a lot of similarities between a lot of different forms of content and the class tree. This build has a little bit more maintenance healing, but the basics are the same. We have our Celestial windows with the Vivify cleave portion. We are using Rapid Diffusion and extending it through Rising Mist. So this is, again, basically the same playstyle across all builds, but the way that we go about it differs depending on your Celestial and whether or not you are using Ancient Teachings or Clouded Focus. There's a small difference in Chi-Ji builds that we run that is dependent on the boss. We could run Gift of the Celestials for a 1 minute timer, or we could run Jade Bond for a 3 minute timer. We could also be taking Phalanx Stomp on some bosses, in which we would also be using Chi-Ji. Now that we've seen all of the builds, which one do you use? Honestly, it depends on your personal preference. Regardless of the build, you're still going to be in melee, using Rising Mist and Rapid Diffusion and all of the fun things that are kind of the core of our kit. We're currently considering the Yulon builds to be higher HPS, however they can be more difficult. The Chi-Ji builds have a lower floor, but also a lower ceiling that can be more forgiving with mana and generally is easier to play. It also depends on the boss as well as the other healers that you have in your group, so it's really your decision to make based on all of the different factors that you are facing as well as your comfort level with either Celestial. Stat-wise, it is very similar to Melee Plus. Haste is our best stat due to hot tick rate, faster casts, lower GCD, a quicker DPS rotation, as well as value in our Celestial rotation. Crit contributes to our healing and our damage quite a bit, and Verse contributes to the same things at a smaller level but also provides some survivability, but this isn't something that we focus over Crit or Haste. Mastery is our worst stat in Raid, especially if you are running a Yulon build since she has no Mastery interaction unlike Chi-Ji. I call this our rotation, but this is really just what you should be doing outside of your cooldowns. That is using Renewing Mist on cooldown. You want to have really high uptime on this and make sure that they are always in use and you're never sitting on your stacks. We're going to be wanting to use Rising Sun Kick on cooldown and then following up with Tiger Palm and Blackout Kick to fish for resets on that Rising Sun Kick. If you're using Ancient Teachings, you want to make sure that you are maintaining that through Essence Font. If not, you can completely disregard this step. And lastly, you want to make sure that you are spot healing every now and then with Vivify, mostly using those instant procs. When we're talking cooldowns, we have Revival. This is a one-off instant button. There really isn't much to talk about here, and we are not even going to be using Essence Font for this because it is not worth the mana cost. Yulon or Chi-Ji are our choices for our Celestial. Yulon we only ever use with Gift of the Celestial, so this is a 1 minute cooldown with a strict rotation but provides high throughput, and Chi-Ji can be used either as a 1 minute or a 3 minute cooldown, but if we're in a situation where 1 minute timers are favorable, we would just be playing Yulon anyway. This is the Yulon window as well as the Vivify cleave window. We are going to start out with using Shaylin's Gift to trigger our Xiaohao's Lessons buff. Then we are going to use Thunder Focus Tea with Renewing Mist for the haste from Secret Infusion as well as the proc from our 4-piece. We are going to send Yulon and then hard cast 4 or 5 Enveloping Mists. You are going to be blanketing your raid with Enveloping Breath, so 4 or 5 depends on the stack of your group. You're going to use Rising Sun Kick to extend Enveloping Mist and the Renewing Mist from Yulon and Rapid Diffusion. You're going to use Mana Tea for the reduced cost on Vivify as well as proccing the 4-piece again. You're going to start a Soothing Mist channel utilizing Clouded Focus. Cast 1 Enveloping Mist and then Vivify spam until Rising Sun Kick is up. With Invoker's Delight and the Thunder Focus Tea haste proc with Secret Infusion, we have a lot of haste during this, but it is still a very tight window. If you're using Chi-Ji, this looks very similar to what we were doing last tier. You're going to make sure that you have a pre-stack of 3 Teachings of the Monastery. We're going to use Shaylin's Gift for our Xiaohao's Lessons buff, use Essence Font to trigger Ancient Teachings. We are going to then use Thunder Focus Tea with Renewing Mist for the haste from Secret Infusion as well as proccing the 4-piece, and then we are going to use Chi-Ji. From here we will be spending our pre-stack with Blackout Kick and then casting the free Enveloping Mist that comes off of that and extending it with a Rising Sun Kick, and then you repeat the Tiger Palm, Blackout, Enveloping Mist until Ancient Teachings falls off. When Ancient Teachings falls off, we're going to be using an Essence Font to refresh Ancient Teachings, Rising Sun Kick to extend, and then repeat the Tiger Palm rotation until Chi-Ji is over. It is also important to note that if Rising Sun Kick resets on a Blackout Kick, prioritize Rising Sun Kick over Tiger Palm. These are just some recommended Weakauras. The first one is the Raid Ability Timeline Weakaura. This is a dynamic Weakaura that shows upcoming abilities from bosses in a really nice format. It does require DBM or big rigs to work, but they're pretty standard at this point. Next, I highly recommend the Renewing Mist counter Weakaura. This is super important for knowing how many Renewing Mists you have active at once, as this leads into the decision on whether or not you should be casting Vivify or not. It also shows you the lowest duration mist in the form of that green circle that will cycle down. Next up is just raid frames that will allow you to see who has what hots. This is especially important when you are going to be spreading your Renewing Mists during your non-cooldown rotation, when you are looking to put your Enveloping Mist somewhere, or when you're trying to spread Enveloping Breath. And you're also going to want to be able to tell when an important boss mechanic is happening, such as a Dispel or priority healing situation. And last but not least, you want buff trackers as well as a Renewing Mist counter that will tell you how many charges that you have. Mistweaver has a lot of buffs to keep track of. You're going to be keeping track of many things, even more than we have now, because we also have to keep track of our 4-piece. So I definitely recommend something that you are able to tell easily what you have up and about how long you have left on it. I hope that this video was helpful. If you guys have any comments or questions, feel free to hit me up on Twitch, Twitter, or Discord, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.